Hey guys, Matthew, and today I want to bring you guys just a quick video on essentially a bit of a pointer for each one of the 4 league starters that I've made and prepared for the upcoming 3.16 Scourge League. Now, this is a question that I'm getting asked all the time right now. Is Winter better than Reap Mines? Is Reap Mines better than Seismic Trap? Is Physical Trapper better than Miner? Is General Cry better than Eye of Winter? And here's the thing. They all serve a fairly similar purpose. And their purpose is to run through the game as fast as possible, completely blast through the Atlas, Conquerors, Cyrus, endgame bosses. They are going to, every single one of these 4 builds on extremely bare bones gear is going to allow you to just walk through the game. Straight up walk through the game. Now at that point, you've basically got 2 options, right? You could either keep investing into those builds to just keep scaling them and scaling them and scaling them. Some of them are going to scale better than others. And you could just decide to farm currency and keep it aside and then, invest into your mid-league build or your endgame build, whatever you're going to be playing after your league starter, right? So while they all serve a similar purpose, they're all different in their own regards. And the idea of this video is that I basically want to tell you guys what these differences are. So if you've been wondering, oh, which one of these builds should I be playing based on what you want to be doing, hopefully this video helps you choose exactly that. So the most league start friendly for new players, right? The most newbie friendly build that I've prepared in all of these 4 builds, the build that you could pretty much close your eyes and play. And not only that, it's super comfortable. I like to call it the laziest boss killer ever, is Seismic Trap. Now, you are playing a Trapper playstyle, so unlike a Miner playstyle, you're able to just throw the traps and keep moving around, unlike a Miner where you have to keep standing still in order to throw the mines. Now, the difference here between a Miner and a Trapper, and that exact difference, what that actually means, is that on a Miner, since you're kind of sitting there standing still throwing mines, if something is coming at you, like a mechanic, like a Shaper Ball, like whatever it is, you need to dodge out of the way, and then you need to keep throwing your mines in order to keep doing damage. The advantage of this very lazy playstyle is you get to throw the traps and move around while they are dealing damage. So it allows for newer players who are not necessarily as mechanically skilled, or not necessarily skilled, but they don't know all the mechanics of each and every one of the bosses, what they're going to be doing, to simply focus on manually dodging by just running around like a headless chicken, because that's pretty much one of the best defense in the game. Just don't get hit, right? And because we are clearing with exsanguinate traps, which has a really good clear, with very minimal, you can basically close your eyes and just walk around and throw traps. It's going to make for a super comfortable league starter. Now, the downside of this build, however, is that the ceiling isn't that high. You are not going to be able to push the damage of any of the other 3 builds on this build. However, as I've showcased in a previous video here, here and here, you can actually get to the point where Seismic Trap is going to be able to do the Feared, which some would, consider the most endgame encounter in the game. However, of course, with the coming of Uber content, right, Blight Ravage maps, Uber simulacrums or Wave 30 simulacrums, and then Uber breachstones and all that, really high-end content, this build is probably not going to cut it because the ceiling is pretty low. And while, yes, we are getting some buff to defenses on the evasion archetype, if you will, it is still not going to be an extremely tanky build, and since it's physical, it doesn't benefit anything from, for example, chilling and freezing. So if you don't quite have the damage to just kill a pack of monsters instantly, that could be a problem. However, if you're a newer player, this is definitely the one that I recommend the most. Okay, next let's talk about the Eye of Winter Miner and the Reap Miner, because those 2 are actually going to be fairly similar. Those are the 2 builds where every single time that you invest an extra Exalt, it is going to absolutely feel awesome. You are going to visually see the HP pool of the bosses going down faster for basically every single Exalt you put into these builds, because their scaling potential is through the roof, right? An extra level, boom, 10-15% more damage. On most builds, that you can barely feel. On these builds, they're doing so much damage on absolute bare bones gear that the moment that you throw in an extra 10-15% damage, you are going to see that HP bar go down that much faster. The thing is, they serve the exact same purpose. Their purpose is, again, just to walk through the game and do all content on extremely budget gear, but the Reap Miner and the Eye of Winter Miner are actually basically the same. those two are really just going to be preference. In one way, you're able to scale the Reap Miner for cheaper because cold iron points, despite the fact that they're probably going to be somewhat expensive this league, are always going to be significantly cheaper than the equivalent on a +2 cold and all spells on a Eye of Winter miner. So because of that, if you're looking at a build that you can scale better than Seismic, but that's also going to be a little bit more annoying to play, a little bit more clunky due to the blood charges that I've explained in the video, then Reap Miner is probably going to be for you because the damage is a lot better than what you can get out of Seismic. You can pretty much get to the point by scaling this build with only 20-30x investment that you will one-shot the Feared better than some other builds that you can invest literally hundreds of exalts into. It is pretty nuts. The Eye of Winter has a pretty similar playstyle. It's just as clunky in a sense that you do need to put down that debuff, right? Instead of being blood charges, however, it's going to be placing your Hydrosphere. Otherwise, you're still using Bear Trap and you're still running an Arcanist brand setup, so you're still having to press 2 or 3 buttons in order to debuff the bosses. So playstyle-wise, they're basically the same. Now, the upside of Eye of Winter is that it is a cold build, so you are going to freeze everything. And in this game, freeze is definitely one of the better layers of defense when mapping. Think about the Scourge League. Everyone's saying, oh my god, Scourge League is going to be super rippy. There's going to be this damage increase that you're taking and all that. Well, you know how to never take damage? Just freeze everything. If everything is frozen on your screen before it even gets the chance to touch you, then you're not going to die, right? So even if it's inherently a pretty squishy build due to the fact that it is a Saboteur, even despite the buffs to defenses, it is going to remain a fairly squishy build. That extra layer of defense of freeze is literally one of the best that you could ask for. So I would say that this one is definitely a go-to if you want a very smooth mapping and very good, basically, return on investment, because the amount of damage that you get for every Exalt invested is just as good on the Reap Miner, but you get that extra layer of freeze. However, those two builds really are just, what do you feel like playing? Do you feel like playing a cold build, or do you feel like playing a physical build? That's pretty much it. This one's slightly easier to scale due to endgame weapons being cold iron points, and this one being +2 wands and probably multi-modded, so you can end up with some, pretty high budget there. But as I showcased in the video here, doing a Awakener 7 Guardian with Guardian's Aid, which means double Guardian, which I think had 60% increased life in this video, which is more tanky than any of the other bosses that I showcased, it was still able to completely annihilate it. So imagine if it didn't have that 60% increased life. It would have killed it within a second. And finally is the General Cry Berserker. So this is definitely what I would consider the hardest of all these three builds, and the hardest one to get off the ground, right? While the Physical Trapper, the Eye of Winter, and the Reap Miner require absolutely zero gear, like literally nothing, the General Cry Berserker will require both the shield and, the Abysses and the Ichimonji and, a 6-link that is not a Tabula. So instantly when you remove a Tabula and throw in an actual 6-link, you're going to increase the price by at least a little bit. Now, of course, you could run a corrupted 6-link, especially this league, which that is pretty cheap. But that is always going to be increasing the cost. And the thing about General Cry Berserker is that your output of damage is never going to be as high as any of the three other builds until you start investing money into it. In order to get the same level of damage that you get from Eye of Winter and Reap Miner on about 1 Exalt budget, you're probably going to need to invest about 5 to 10 Exalts on the General Cry Berserker. So now you're probably like, so why would you ever play the General Cry Berserker? Because it has the highest ceiling than any of these other builds by far. The ceiling on Eye of Winter and Reap Miner is probably somewhere around the 20 to 30 million, and that is considering some pretty endgame gear. Now I'm talking a true 20-30 million, not a fluffed, which that basically means that you walk up to Maven and you kill her in about 2 seconds, which is just a few frames. The physical Seismic is a little bit lower than that, probably somewhere around 12 million. Pretty hard to get more damage than that out of Seismic, but again, you're still killing Maven within just a few seconds. Well, General Cry Berserker can easily get to around 100 million when we're talking about endgame content. Endgame budget, 100 million damage, means that you are killing that Maven with 15 million HP in less than a single second. And that is not fluffed. That is a true 100 million damage. You walk up to Maven, you spin for half a second, and she's dead. It is that insane, the level of scaling that you can get on a General Cry build. So if you're somebody who likes to play one build, right, and who likes to really push that build and invest into it, that is definitely the build that I would recommend. So one last thing that I want to talk about real quick is going to be if you're not somebody who really wants to focus on bossing and you just happen to watch this video for some reason, I do have a build that I think is probably the best mapping focused build that also has really good single target that can work on extremely small budget, and that is going to be the build of one of my good friend Fyrgrass, and that is a tornado shot occultist. So the idea of this build is that it's a tank, right? So remember how I was saying that none of these builds are going to be particularly amazing when it comes to the new endgame content, Blight Ravaged maps, or the Uber breaches, Wave 30 simulacrums, right? Stuff like that. Well, this build is exactly what you're looking for if your goal is to push that sort of content. And the good thing is that this build is going to do all that content that I just mentioned without needing a headhunter, which most other builds in the game, even historically speaking, the really good builds that we had, when it came to super endgame juice maps, 100% dilly and all that, it pretty much always required a headhunter. This build, as showcased in his video here, at the very end of the video, he is basically showcasing the build in action, and he is doing some 60% delirious conquerors and also guardian shaper guardians, 60% delirious on 5-link with extremely budget gear, no quality on his gems. Now, of course, the damage is nothing to write home about. You could look at this damage and be like, okay, well, it took like 3 minutes to kill a boss. I mean, sure, maybe he took a little bit of time to kill that boss, but that is a 60% delirious boss on a 5-link. That is something that you're not going to be able to do on most other builds in the game, let alone a budget build. And not only that, it's a tank, right? It is a build that can absolutely take a massive hit, despite the fact that it has 4,300 life, as the showcase shows. When he explains the mechanics, there are some really core defensive mechanics of damage mitigation that is percent based, and with the upcoming changes to, the nerfs to dodge, we are making up for that drastically through, of course, the big buffs to armor and evasion. So not only you're getting some percent base mitigation, you're also getting some additional mitigation through just avoidance. Not only that, you've got some taunting mechanics on your totems, which allow you to just simply not get targeted by the boss or the monsters. Overall, this build is definitely one that I would highly recommend if you're looking for a mapper. If you're looking for a bosser, one of these four is probably your go-to based on everything that I've said in this video. So before I go, I want to say a huge thank you to my supporters: Kat, Alex, Brandon, Nick, the second Alex, Flame Scorpion, Neroth, Grimoire, The Great Master, Johnny, Thomas, Mass, Reese, Tim, Axel, Road to Millions, Edicus, Scott, Stan, Zarashi, Welcome Back, and Wolverine, as well as Ronald, Kevin, Alex, Bitzen, and Mercury. Anybody else who's supported me in the past, and anybody else who wishes to remain anonymous. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully this helps you choose which one of the builds is most suited for you. And that'll be Matthew signing out. Until the next one. Peace.